So if you work in product or design, maybe engineering, you've probably hit that point, right?
Yeah.
Where you know you need user research, but then you're just drowning in options. Is it an A/B test? A diary study? Should I do 15 interviews? It feels like total information overload sometimes.
It really does.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our whole mission today in this deep dive is basically to give you that secret decoder ring for picking research methods. Because the fundamental error we see people make, it isn't choosing the wrong tool exactly.
Oh, no.
It's more like falling in love with a method before you even figured out the core question you're trying to answer.
Yeah.
You know, you have to shift from, oh, I love surveys to, wait, what specific decision does this research need to help me make?
Exactly. We want to help you move from just being curious about research to actually feeling capable of doing it effectively. And the sources we looked at, they're really all pointing to the same thing.
Right.
The answer is usually kind of baked into the question itself.
Right.
If you define your problem clearly, the right methodology, it tends to reveal itself.
Okay, so let's start right there, that essential first step. Let's maybe set up a quick scenario. Say we just launched a new checkout flow, and suddenly, bam, we see a 20% drop-off rate right at the end. We definitely have a problem.
Right. And that 20% number, that's data, sure, but it tells you what happened, not why it happened.
Exactly.
So the very next question you ask is absolutely crucial because that question immediately points you towards a specific type of method.
Okay, so I see two main paths here. Path one, we really need to understand the motives, the why. So the question becomes, why are users getting stuck, like right before they hit that final confirm button? What are they thinking? What are they missing?
And that question, that why, sends you straight into the deep end, the qualitative methods. It's all about insight, understanding mental models, the user experience. So you're probably looking at interviews, maybe some usability testing. You need to watch them or listen really closely to their story. You're digging for depth here, not necessarily big numbers.
Got it. Then there's path two. Let's ignore the why for just a second and focus only on the metric, the what or how many. So the question is different. It's more like, how many users who abandoned the cart actually saw that new shipping rate warning we added? And importantly, how does this drop-off compare to the old flow?
See? That shifts the ground completely. Now it's a quantitative question. How many users? That demands scale.
Right, scale.
Which means you're looking at things like analytics, server logs, maybe large-scale surveys. If you try to answer a how many question with just, say, 5 interviews, well, you're not going to get data you can confidently act on for scale.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Starting with the goal of the question stops you from blindly picking a method and, frankly, wasting time on something that just can't give you the answer you need.
Okay, so we've got this key difference nailed down. Motive versus metric, or maybe depth versus scale. But the landscape. It feels a bit more complicated than just qual versus quant, doesn't it?
It is, yeah. To really pick the right tool from the toolbox, you need to think about 2 dimensions kind of working together.
Right.
The first dimension is the one we just talked about. Qualitative, that's the depth, the why or the how. And quantitative, that's the breadth, the how many or how much.
Right. Qual and quant. Got it.
But then, layered on top of that is the second dimension, attitudinal versus behavioral.
Attitudinal. Like attitudes.
Exactly. Attitudinal is what users say. It's their stated beliefs, their opinions, what they tell you they want or feel. Think surveys, interviews sometimes.
And behavioral.
Behavioral is what users actually do. It's their clicks, their navigation paths, how they really use the product. Think analytics, usability testing, A/B tests, what they do, not just what they say they do.
Okay, so qual, quant, attitudinal, behavioral, that feels like a lot to juggle. 4 core types of data now. Isn't that getting maybe a bit too complex if I'm just, a busy PM who needs an answer by Friday?
It might seem like it at first, but it's actually the structure that simplifies things. Because when you combine those elements, you basically get the 4 main goals of UX research. And that becomes your roadmap.
Okay, a roadmap. I like that. Lay out that map for us. Maybe use some analogies.
Sure, think of it like this. If your goal is discovery or exploration, you're basically asking fundamental questions. What are the user's main problems here? This usually lives in the qualitative realm depth, and it uses either attitudinal methods like interviews where you hear their stories, or behavioral ones like field studies where you observe them in their natural habitat, so to speak. You're trying to find problems you didn't even know existed.
Okay, finding unknown unknowns. Got it.
Then, if your goal is evaluation or validation, now you're looking at a specific design or prototypes. This is squarely in the qualitative and behavioral space. Think usability testing.
Like testing the brakes on the prototype.
Exactly. You're watching users interact with your design to see where they stumble, what they do. It's about seeing if the design actually works in practice.
Right. Okay, third.
Third, if your goal is measurement or benchmarking, you need to quantify things. How big is this problem? Did our fix work? This is pure quantitative territory scale, and it can be attitudinal, like tracking satisfaction scores from surveys, or behavioral, like looking at conversion rates from an A/B test or analytics. You need numbers here.
Numbers to prove impact, yeah.
And finally, there's ongoing feedback. This tends to be quantitative or sometimes mixed methods. Think those little pop-up micro-surveys or just keeping an eye on live analytics. It's about having a continuous pulse check.
Uh-huh.
The key takeaway is figure out your goal discovery, evaluation, measurement, or ongoing feedback, and it immediately slots you into one of those quadrants, which drastically narrows down your method choices from maybe 50 options down to just 2 or 3 relevant ones.
That's actually really helpful. It simplifies it. Okay, so now we've got a handle on what tool to grab based on the goal and the data type. But the next piece, and this seems crucial, is when to use it. Like using a discovery method when you're trying to optimize an existing feature. That feels like it would give you useless data, right? Timing matters.
Oh, absolutely. Timing is everything. The methods you choose need to align with where your product is in its life cycle.
Okay.
So if you're way back in the early idea or foundational stage,
Yeah.
maybe before that checkout flow even exists as code, your goal is just basic understanding, empathy. So you focus entirely on those deep discovery methods. You might do long-form interviews just to understand the general pain points people have around online shopping or shipping or returns. Broad exploration.
Okay, makes sense.
That's
But
all.
then once we move into the design or prototype stage, say we've got a wireframe or a clickable prototype of that new checkout flow.
Then you totally shift gears. Now it's about evaluation and iteration. You need quick feedback.
So usability tests.
Usability tests are perfect here. They give you that immediate observational feedback on whether the structure makes sense, if the flow works. You might also do something like a rapid card sorting study to make sure the labels on your buttons are clear before you invest engineering time. Quick, targeted validation.
And then finally, once the checkout flow is live, after launch or in optimization mode, that's when the big numbers become important again.
Exactly. Now the focus shifts heavily towards metrics and optimization. You'd rely on large-scale analytics to pinpoint exactly where that 20% drop-off is happening. You'd use A/B testing to compare, say, different button text to see what performs better.
Got it.
Choosing a method that matches your product stage basically guarantees you're getting answers you can actually use now.
Okay, but here comes the, let's call it the dose of cold water. Reality check time. Because we live in the real world, right? We can sit here and talk about the perfect method, but often the deadline is tomorrow, the budget is practically zero, or we can't easily get access to the users we need. We have to deal with real-world constraints. Time, money, user access, even the tools we have available. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Well, constraints aren't something to apologize for, really. You should think of them as design parameters for your research plan itself.
Okay, parameters, not blockers.
Exactly. A smart researcher doesn't try to force some massive 6-week study when they only have 3 days. They figure out the simplest method that can still provide genuinely useful insight within those limits.
And often that means maybe sacrificing the ideal method for something more efficient. Like, do you always need a brand new study?
That's a great point. You absolutely have to ask, can we reuse existing data? Is there useful information buried in last quarter's analytics logs? Or maybe in customer support tickets or past survey results? Don't reinvent the wheel if the answer's already sitting there.
Good point. Save time and effort.
And if you need feedback, like right now, you have to lean on quick, targeted methods. You know, I once saw a team spend days setting up complex eye tracking gear when all they really needed was to watch someone try to click a button for 5 minutes to realize the button was just way too small.
Been there.
So that classic example, running a quick, focused 5-person usability test now, might give you 80% of the immediate value you need to tackle that 20% drop-off problem.
Right.
Often the value comes from speed and simplicity, not necessarily from the most complex or perfect methodology. Get something actionable quickly.
Okay, so we've talked about asking the right question, finding the right dimension of data, picking the right time, and being realistic about constraints. But even then, sometimes a single method still feels like it only gives you part of the story.
That's absolutely right. And if we want to connect this to the bigger picture of building really robust understanding, we have to acknowledge that no single method gives you the complete truth. It just can't. If you only look at analytics, like that 20% drop-off, you get the what, but not the why. You see the numbers, but you don't understand the human motive behind them.
Right. And if you only do interviews,
Then you get rich stories, the why, but you have no idea how widespread those issues are. Is it just those 5 people, or is it affecting thousands? You get depth, but no scale.
so the answer is combine them.
Exactly. Combining methods, what researchers often call triangulation, is how you get superior, much more trustworthy insight.
Right.
You're looking at the problem from multiple angles.
I get the why of triangulation now. It makes sense multiple viewpoints are better.
Yeah.
But does the order matter? Like, if we decide we need interviews, a survey, and usability testing,
Yeah.
can't we just run them all at the same time to save time?
Ah, good question. The sequencing, the order you do them in, can actually be pretty critical.
Oh, why is that?
Because ideally, the findings from one method should directly inform how you design the next method. It makes the whole research chain much stronger and more efficient.
Okay, so how would that look in practice? Walk us through a powerful sequence.
Okay, so a really effective approach often starts with those deep qualitative interviews. Your goal here is to uncover the user stories, identify the core problems, and crucially, hear the specific language users use when they talk about their frustrations. Like with the checkout flow, you're finding the why and the exact words they use to describe the problem.
Okay, so maybe the interviews tell us users feel the shipping cost is hidden or sneaky. We capture that exact language.
Precisely. Now, armed with that specific language and those identified pain points, you design a really tight, targeted, large-scale survey. You're not asking vague questions. You're asking things like, how clear did you find the shipping costs? Using language that resonates.
Oh, okay.
The survey then tells you how many of your users share that feeling that the cost is hidden. It quantifies the scale of the problem you uncovered in the interviews. You're finding the how many.
Right, connecting the story to the number. And then the final step. You mentioned usability testing.
Yeah, you close the loop with usability testing, probably on a redesigned prototype that aims to fix the hidden cost issue. You specifically recruit users who reported the problem, if possible, or match the profile, and you watch them behave. Do they successfully find the shipping cost now? Does the new design actually solve the problem you identified and quantified?
I see. So you get the story, the scale, and then the proof that your fix worked.
Exactly. That chain, interviews for why, survey for how many, usability testing for how they behave, gives you depth, breadth, and observable proof, all reinforcing each other. It builds a much more compelling case.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense now.
Yeah.
Let's say you've done all this careful work. You chose the right approach, maybe even triangulated beautifully, ran the study. The next hurdle is often internal, right?
Right.
That meeting where you have to convince, say, the VP of product that your small targeted study was the right call, maybe instead of some massive overhaul they initially wanted. How do you explain your choice effectively?
That's a crucial skill. When someone asks, why did you choose this method? Your answer needs to connect directly back to 3 key things, always.
Okay, what are they?
First, what specific decision is this research going to support? Be explicit. Second, what were the constraints you were working with in time, budget, access, whatever they were? Frame them as parameters, remember. And third, what did you realistically expect to find with this method, given those constraints and the decision needed?
Okay, so instead of just saying, we chose a survey because we needed quant data, it sounds kind of weak.
Right, weak and academic.
You should frame it more like, look, we chose this large-scale survey because we need to quantify how widespread this hidden shipping cost perception actually is before we commit engineering resources to a potentially big redesign. Given our 2-week timeline, this was the most cost-effective way to validate the problem's severity and de-risk that engineering investment.
Exactly. See how that ties the research method directly to a business decision, acknowledges the constraints, and manages expectations. It's about risk mitigation and outcome, not just research for research's sake.
That's much stronger.
Yeah.
Okay, but even with the best plan and explanation, things can still go wrong during the actual research, right? What are some common pitfalls people should watch out for during execution, even if they pick the right method?
Oh, definitely. Good execution is key. One of the biggest mistakes is picking a method because it sounds cool or new. We sometimes call it shiny tool syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
You pick it because it's trendy, not because it's the most useful tool for your specific question. Another big one is overgeneralizing from small sample sizes.
Like the 5 interviews example.
Exactly. If 5 people you interviewed absolutely hate the color blue on your site, that's valuable qualitative insight into their feelings. But you absolutely cannot then claim, our users hate the color blue and apply it to millions. That requires quantitative validation.
Right. Got to know the limits of your data.
And maybe the most critical, yet often overlooked pitfall is ignoring context. The user's environment, are they stressed, multitasking, using old software, on a tiny screen? That context can fundamentally change how they interact with your product and how they respond in research. Ignoring it can really skew your results.
Context is king. Okay, so knowing the pitfalls, what are the absolute essential tips for success once you've chosen your method and you're ready to actually do the research?
Okay, essentials. Number one, always, always, always run a pilot test first. Test your questions, test your tasks, test your tech. Just with one or two people, it catches so many problems before you waste real participant time.
Pilot testing, non-negotiable. Got it.
Number two, if you're doing interviews or even usability tests, use semi-structured guides. Have your core questions planned out, absolutely, but leave room for flexibility. Allow yourself to follow interesting tangents or unexpected insights. That's often where the gold is.
Be prepared, but be open. Okay,
Yeah.
what else?
Plan your recruitment carefully. Getting the right participants is arguably more important than having a huge number of the wrong participants. Define your target audience clearly.
Quality over just quantity for recruiting.
Right. And when you report your findings, use both numbers and quotes. Tell the story with the qualitative insights, but back it up with the quantitative data where possible. Stories plus metrics.
Best of both worlds.
And the final, maybe most crucial tip ties back to the beginning. Research that doesn't clearly inform a decision risks being just an interesting academic exercise. Always, always tie your findings back to specific, actionable decisions the team needs to make. Make it useful.
Wow, okay. This has been incredibly clarifying. I feel like we've really built a roadmap. So for you listening, let's quickly recap the core path. First, always start with your question. Figure out if you need the why, motive, or the how many metric.
Yeah.
Use that to define the right dimension of data depth versus scale, what people say versus what they do. Then, match your chosen methods to your specific product stage. Are you exploring ideas, testing prototypes, or optimizing something live? Be realistic. Work within your actual limits, time, budget, access. Execute the simplest study that gets you actionable insight effectively. Don't aim for perfection if it means getting nothing done.
Yeah, done is often better than perfect.
And remember the power of triangulation. Combine methods, stories, numbers, behavior for that richer, more reliable view. And finally, always be ready to explain why you chose that method, linking it directly to decisions and constraints.
That really covers the practical steps. But thinking about that context pitfall we mentioned,
Yeah.
it raises a really important final question for you to mull over.
Oh.
Consider this. Let's say you execute a technically flawless research study. You pilot it perfectly, you triangulate methods brilliantly, the analysis is spot on. But you test a new healthcare app designed for emergencies by having users sit calmly in a quiet lab environment. When, in reality, the app's actual context of use is a chaotic, high-stress emergency room with alarms going off and doctors rushing around. How might ignoring the high-stakes, high-pressure context, the real environment, fundamentally invalidate your otherwise perfect data? The ultimate challenge, perhaps, isn't just selecting the right method from the menu. It might be ensuring that the method is observing behavior within the messy, stressful, true environment where your product actually lives. Something to think about as you plan your next research effort.